Hey boys and girls, today we are going to talk about finding the volume of cones and pyramids. Now, the good news about finding the volume of a cone and a pyramid is we're going to use the same formula, but we're going to sort of do it differently. You'll see what I mean by that in just a minute, but just a quick rundown of finding the volume of a cone. If you remember correctly, we found the volume of cylinders already, and we found the formula to find the volume of a cylinder was volume equals pi r squared times the height. So to break that down, really what it comes down to is we did the area of the base times the height. All right, so we found the area of this circular base, and then we multiplied it by the height. All right. So the formula for to find the volume of a cone is this. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about so just to make sense out of this formula here. This is a capital B because it stands for the area of the base. Now, what I mean by we're going to do it differently is that, if I have a cone, I'm going to use this formula. But if I have a pyramid, I'm going to still use this formula. But keep in mind, cones have a circular base, whereas a pyramid might have a triangular or a square base. So I'm going to find the area differently for each one of them. But anyway, so forget this 1/3 for just a second. So if notice that I have here this area of the base times the height. That's the same thing we did over here. This was the area of the base, and we multiplied it by the height. So that's where this comes into play. So it's really kind of the same thing, but the only difference is that I'm adding this 1/3 into there. And the reason why I'm adding 1/3 is because if you notice that this cone and cylinder, they both have the same radius and they both have the same height. So if you have a cone and a cylinder with the same radius and the same height, then if I wanted to fill this cylinder up with water, I would have to go ahead and fill this cone up 3 times. So if I filled this cone up 1 time and dumped it in here, I'd have about this much water in there. And then if I filled it up again and I poured it into the cylinder, I'd have about that much water. So I would need 1 cone, 2 cones, 3 cones to fill that up. So in other words, the volume of this cone here is 1/3 that of this cylinder. So if you look at our formula, area of the base times the height, well, same thing here. I have the area of the base times the height, but since the cone is 1/3 that of the cylinder, I'm going to go ahead and throw a 1/3 into there. All right. I'm saying that because I want you to understand the formula. I can link some videos that could sort of explain that. Like in the past, I've done something with rice and cones, and just so you guys can see that. But I want to give a quick little reasoning behind the formula. All right. So let's try some of these. All right. First one. We have this. So notice that we have a square pyramid. No, we don't have a square pyramid. We have a rectangular pyramid. So it's not a square because 6 and 4.5 are not the same. So again, formula, volume equals 1/3 area of the base times the height. Okay. So now, a lot of times I tend to do this, I bring it over here. I do like a separate problem here. So if I'm going to find the area of the base of this rectangle, so think about it. I got a rectangle that looks like this. So I'm looking at it overhead. It looks like this. 6 centimeters and 4.5 centimeters. So I got to find the area of that. So to find the area of a rectangle, I'm just doing length times width. So 6 times 4.5 is going to be 27. So in other words, I come back here. Volume equals 1/3 times the area of the base we know is 27 times the height of the pyramid is 8. All right. So for here, it doesn't matter how I do this here. I could do it. I'm just multiplying 3 different numbers. I'm multiplying 1/3 times 27 times 8. So I think what tends to be the easiest thing to do is um, to do this. I like to do the numbers first here. So I like to do 27 times 8. So if we do that, we have 27 times 8 equals 216. So I'm left with 1/3 times 216. So when I multiply something by 1/3, it's the same thing as me dividing it by 3. So if I just take this and divide it by 3, that's going to give me 72. So I'm left with volume is equal to 72 centimeters cubed. Now, I could have done this differently because I could, if I just looked at it like this and said, well, 1/3 times 27 is the same thing as 1/3 of 27 is 9, and then 9 times 8 is 72. You could certainly do that, but more often than not, the numbers aren't going to work out all that easily. There'll be more complicated numbers. So that's why I just prefer to go ahead and multiply these two numbers together and then divide it by 3. Okay, let's try the next one. So here we have a triangular pyramid. So again, the formula is going to stay the same. Volume equals 1/3 times the area of the base times the height. So I do my problem over here. This triangle looks like this. So it's got, this is 3 centimeters and this is 5 centimeters. So if you remember, to find the area of a triangle, its area equals 1/2 base times height. And again, it doesn't matter what order I do any of this in. So if I just have, let's fill in what we know, 1/2 times, nope, 1/2 times the base, we'll say it's 5, times the height, we'll say is 3. So again, I could do this any order I want. I could do 5 times 3 is 15, times 1/2. So let's bring this up here. I know I wrote it so low. So A equals 1/2 times 15. And 1/2 times 15 is the same thing as 1/2 of 15, or 15 divided by 2. So I'm going to get area equals 7.5 centimeters. So now I know my area. Let's fill it into the formula. Volume equals 1/3 times 7.5 times the height is 6. So now again, I like to do these numbers first. So 7.5 times 6, 45. So I'm left with 1/3 times 45, which is the same thing as 45 divided by 3, which is 15. So the volume of this will be 15 centimeters cubed. Okay? Let's do another one. So for this one, we have again a rectangular pyramid there. So formula again is volume equals 1/3 times the area of the base times the height. But notice here that I don't know what the height is, but I do know the volume in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and just, again, let's fill in the things that we know. So volume equals, nope, I know the volume. So the volume is 260 is equal to 1/3 times the area of the base. Well, again, this is a rectangle, right? Kind of looks like a square, but it's a rectangle by the numbers. So it's 15 inches by 8 inches. So 15 times 8 is 120. So the area of the base is 120 times the height, which we don't know. So we've done this with volume of cylinders. Let's simplify this side. So we do 260 equals 1/3 times 120 is the same thing as 120 divided by 3, which is 40. So I'm left with 40 times h. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 40. All right, and I wind up with h is equal to, let's do 260 divided by 40, which is going to equal 6.5. All right, so the height is equal to 6.5 inches, that would be. So 6.5 inches. Now, one thing you can always do when you have a question like this you can always just check yourself, because if you know the volume is 260, so let's go back and do volume equals 1/3 times the area of the base times the height. Let's not fill in the form of the volume now. Let's say volume equals 1/3 times the area of the base, which we said was 120, times the height, which now we know is 6.5, right? So let's just do this. So let's multiply these two together. So 120 times 6.5. So 120 times 6.5 equals 780. Now I'm dividing that by 3, and I get 260. So I find the volume is equal to 260 inches cubed, and we knew, so that matches, essentially. So we know the number that we came up with is 6.5 inches for the height. When I plug that into the formula, it works. All right, moving on. For this one is a cone. So again, the formula is volume equals 1/3 area of the base times the height. So our base now is a circle with a radius of 6 inches. So to find the area of a circle, I'm doing area equals pi r squared. So area is equal to 3.14 times 36. Because 6 squared, 6 is the radius, 6 squared is 36. So 36 times 3.14 is like 113 something, 113.04. So now I know the volume equals 1/3 times 113.04 times the height, which we now know is 14. So now I like to do this part first. Let's do 113.04 times 14. That equals this number, 1,582.56. Now if I just divide that by 3, is the same thing as multiplying it by 1/3. So volume equals 527 point, should remember that, 52 inches cubed. All right. And then, I think I got one more. All right, this one. So again, this is one of those ones we have to work backwards. So volume equals 1/3 area of the base times the height. So let's fill in what we know. We know the volume is 2009.6 is equal to 1/3 times, well, I don't know what the radius is here, right? So we're just going to say, so that's kind of tough now, because to find the area of the base, I'd have to do pi r squared times the height, which is 30. All right, so since I don't know what the area of the base is, I'm just going to put the formula that I would use to find the area of the base. So let's simplify this. So this becomes 2009.6 is equal to 1/3 times 3.14 times radius squared times 30. I know that's a lot, so let's just do this. Let's do 1/3. Let's do 3.14. Let's do 3.14 times 30 is equal to this divided by 3 is going to be 31.4. So I'm left with 2009.6 equals 31.4 radius squared. Now we'll divide both sides by 31.4. Okay, and we're left with 2009.6 divided by 31.4, and that equals 64. So I'm left with 64 is equal to r squared. But I don't want to know what r squared is. I want to know what just r is. So we find the square root of r squared, which is r, and find the square root of 64, which is 8. So that means the radius is equal to 8. So the radius equals 8 inches. And that's how we find the volume of cylinders, of cones and pyramids.